Imagine a community that claims to just, absolutely love literature, but where authors are actually terrified to write or get.
Right.
And books are bought purely as these, Instagram props, only to be thrown away, completely unread.
Unread, yeah.
And a 500-year-old toxic fairy warlord is somehow championed as the ideal romantic standard for
Which is just wild.
It is. You'd think we were talking about some bizarre dystopian satirical novel or something, but we're actually looking at the very real, highly influential world of online book communities today. So, welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
For you listening, our mission today is to really unpack this massive stack of transcripts from a YouTube channel called The Unwanted Book Club.
Yeah, and there's a lot to get through.
There really is. We are exploring the fascinating and honestly sometimes toxic and highly influential underbelly of online book communities. Specifically, we're looking at BookTube and AuthorTube.
Right, which are huge.
Massive. And these spaces, they kind of started as cozy internet safe havens, like for isolated bookworms and aspiring writers just wanting to connect.
Sure, like early internet forums.
Exactly. But they have morphed into these high-stakes arenas of consumerism, cutthroat marketing, gatekeeping, and just literal genre warping.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out why this actually matters to you listening.
Yeah.
Because you might be thinking, well, I don't engage with that content.
I don't watch those videos.
Right, like, why does this matter to me if I never log on to YouTube or TikTok to watch a book review?
Exactly.
Well, it matters because these very localized online communities are currently dictating the macro publishing market, the whole thing.
Wait, really? The whole market?
Yeah, they hold an immense amount of economic leverage right now.
Oh, wow.
So the algorithms driving these specific influencer spaces are actually deciding what books get greenlit by the major publishing houses.
Which is terrifying.
It is. They dictate what physical copies end up stacked on the display tables at your local independent bookstore down the street.
Right.
And honestly, how modern storytelling is fundamentally rewriting itself just to satisfy an engagement metric.
Okay, let's unpack this because that is a huge claim. Let's start with how stories are actually birthed in this environment.
Okay, yeah. Let's start there.
So we're looking at AuthorTube, right, which is the creator side of the aisle. And apparently the act of writing itself is being aggressively policed.
Oh, absolutely police.
There is this massive turf war happening over basic approach to the blank page. The plotter versus pantser.
Right, the classic divide.
Which I know you, the listener, are probably familiar with these terms, so we don't need to get bogged down in the basic definitions. The plotters are the architects with their color-coded spreadsheet, right? And the pantsers are the discovery writers, the ones relying on intuition, flying by the seat of their pants.
Exactly, writing as they go.
But what's mind-blowing here, going through these transcripts, is the sheer visceral bias AuthorTube has against discovery writing.
Yeah, it's honestly treated almost like a moral failing in those spaces.
A moral failing? Really?
Yeah, I mean, the platform entirely elevates meticulous plotting as the only legitimate, quote-unquote, professional way to craft a novel.
Wow.
Prominent creators on AuthorTube routinely mock the pantser approach. They label it as reckless or immature or a sign of someone indulging in, childish fantasy.
Instead of doing the real work.
Right, rather than doing the adult work of writing. It's very condescending.
So it's basically like, if you don't have a spreadsheet, you're not a real writer.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, Alexa Dawn is actually brought up in the transcripts as one of the only major, prominent AuthorTubers who openly admits to having pantser qualities.
Yeah, she's a rare exception.
And it's treated like this dirty little secret. Everyone else seems terrified to admit they don't have a rigid market test.
Well, and that terror, it's driven by the structural reality of the platform itself. We really have to look at the algorithmic mechanisms at play here.
Okay, break that down for me.
So from a pure content creation standpoint, it is infinitely easier to film a highly structured 15-minute YouTube video explaining a specific plotting template.
Oh, I see.
Right. Or showcasing a complex notion board for character art that creates actionable, digestible content that retains viewer watch time.
Because it looks like tangible work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do you film a tutorial on creative intuition? Can't. Outlining looks professional. Therefore, the algorithm rewards the plotters with higher visibility.
Which creates a feedback loop.
Yes, a loop where plotting becomes synonymous with success.
And I look at the defense of the pantser method in these transcripts from the Unwanted Book Club, and it's a profoundly psychological process that is just being completely erased.
Yeah, it really is.
Discovery writing relies on extreme empathy. You drop a character into a scenario and you follow them almost like a journalist to see how they react.
Which is how so many classics were written.
Right. It's an exploratory trial and error archaeology. The creator of the source channel talks about throwing out 90% of their first 2 drafts.
Wow.
Sometimes 150 to 200 pages talk.
And see, a plotter sees that deletion as a catastrophic, inefficient waste of time.
A failure.
Exactly. But that massive purge is exactly how the organic theme of the story is discovered.
Because you don't know it yet.
Right. You often don't know the deep underlying thematic core of the book until you finish that messy second draft. It's an ongoing conversation with the subconscious.
Yeah.
But when efficiency and content schedules become the primary drivers of art, that exploratory conversation is just killed.
Killed completely. Which exposes a much larger critique from the source, which is that AuthorTube isn't actually about the craft of writing anymore.
Not at all.
It is mutated into a 90s daytime infomercial.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. You click on a video titled, like, How to Write Better Dialogue, and within 30 seconds, you are hit with this barrage of sponsorships, Patreon shoutouts, aggressive mailing list promotions.
And those convoluted follow-for-follow schemes.
Yes.
It's wild. Well, the underlying economics of self-publishing platforms like Amazon Kindle Unlimited, they completely dictate this behavior.
How so? Like, how does Amazon play into the YouTube side?
So Kindle Unlimited pays authors per page read, which financially incentivizes rapid release schedules.
Oh, like publishing a new book every month?
Exactly, every month or two.
Wow.
And utilizing cliffhangers to keep the pages turning. So authors aren't optimizing for literary finesse anymore.
They're just feeding a machine.
They are optimizing for the algorithm's payout structure.
So it's all about speed and retention.
Yeah.
You know, Jenna Marici is a fascinating case study in this evolution where springs up.
Oh.
In the early days of AuthorTube, she built an audience by being fiercely eccentric, very individualistic, taking huge creative risks with her video format. She had a truly unique voice.
He stood out.
But the transcripts show how that era is entirely dead now. The pressure to maintain engagement has forced creators to trade individuality for mass relatability.
To cast the widest net possible.
Yeah, they adopt this terrifying hive mind mentality. It's the same pristine lighting, same pastel aesthetic, same repetitive video topics.
Like top 5 mistakes you're making.
Yes.
Yeah.
Constantly marketing solely to other panicked writers trying to game the system.
What's fascinating here is how this hive mind mentality completely flattens the art itself.
Yeah, totally flattens it.
When writing advice devolves into strict dogmatic do's and don'ts just to satisfy an algorithm, it stifles genuine creativity.
Do you have an example from the source?
Yeah, take the community's obsession with avoiding floating head syndrome.
Oh, right. Floating heads in dialogue.
Right. They treat dialogue without constant interrupting action tags as a cardinal sin. It becomes this rigid rule.
So they add tags just to add them.
Exactly. The writer's focus shifts from asking, how can I challenge my reader or elevate this scene to how do I pass the AuthorTube purity test of my book sells?
So it's basically turning art into a cookie cutter recipe.
Pretty much.
It sounds like they're trying to build a complex, beautiful house by strictly following a generic tutorial, completely ignoring the fact that some creators are, well, gardener.
Right.
People who need to plant a seed and just watch how it grows. If everyone follows the exact same architectural blueprint to guarantee a marketable product, doesn't all the literature just become a suburban housing tract of identical soulless books?
It absolutely does. It creates a closed loop, an echo chamber of highly optimized, incredibly safe, and entirely predictable content.
Ugh, that sounds exhausting.
And readers catch on to that. The transcripts argue that this relentless focus on marketing over finesse is actively staining the indie publishing industry right now.
Because the quality is dropping.
Exactly. Readers realize they are paying for subpar, underdeveloped books that were pushed out rapidly just to hit a monthly release quota.
Okay, so if the writers on AuthorTube are optimizing for the algorithm, what exactly are the...
That is a great...
Because that brings us to BookTube, right? The consumer side of the... If writers are obsessed with marketing, readers are obsessed at it.
Highly.
The book is no longer a text to be engaged with. It is literally a visual prop.
Yes. The entire ecosystem is built around visual presentation and performative consumerism.
Formative being the key word there.
Yeah. The content is completely dominated by hauls, unhauls, and massive TBR or to-be-read piles.
The sheer irony of the unhaul video is just staggering.
It's unbelievable.
You have creators spending hundreds of dollars on massive stacks of identical hardback new releases.
Just massive amounts of money.
Right. They curate these pristine, ivy-draped IKEA bookshelves with the twinkling fairy lights displaying the books perfectly for the camera.
Just for the backdrop.
And then a month later, they film an unhaul video where they literally purge those exact same books without ever having cracked them.
It is the ultimate expression of consumerism divorced from actual consumption.
Yes, they're not reading them.
The books are functioning purely as aesthetic signifiers. They project the identity of a reader with a capital R to an audience.
It's an identity, not a hobby.
Exactly. Bypassing the actual time-consuming cognitive labor of reading the text. The bookshelf is no longer a reflection of a person's intellectual journey.
It's just a display.
It is a temporary display of what the community currently considers hype.
And the lengths they go to for the books they actually do claim to read, the deep dive exposes this speed reading.
Oh, this part is wild.
Because the YouTube algorithm punishes creators who don't upload instantly, there is a crushing pressure to constantly produce review and wrap-ups.
Right, you have to feed the beast.
One creator mentioned in the transcripts attempted to read for 108 hours a month.
That is practically a full-time salaried job, just scanning pages.
It's insane. Who has the time to actually process a story at that speed?
Well, they don't process it. Another creator openly admitted on camera to skimming just the first and last sentences of paragraphs.
Wait, what?
Yeah, boasting that they could read a full page of text in 1 second just to knock out a book for their next video.
A page a second. That's not reading.
When you process text a page a second, you are not reading literature. You are harvesting basic plot points so you can recite a summary on camera.
Exactly.
You strip away the prose, the subtext, the pacing, and the thematic depth completely.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the Steve Donahue drama, because this is a masterclass in how fragile this ecosystem really is.
Oh yeah, Steve Donahue.
I love this story. So Steve Donahue, an older, veteran literary critic, posts a video observing the behavior of prominent booktubers at industry conventions like BEA and BookCon.
Right, the big trade shows.
He watched these highly edited influencers fly across the country, wait in massive lines for the same 8 hype authors, and essentially act as unpaid publicity hack for giant publishing.
And what was his conclusion?
He casually observed that they don't seem like natural readers.
Which is a very fair observation from an outsider. He was observing the machinery of the community from the outside.
Yeah.
He identified the performative consumerism, the homogenized reading habits, and the free labor they provide to corporate publishers, and he just questioned the authenticity of the entire enterprise.
And how did the community react? The BookTube community went nuclear.
Total meltdown.
Instead of engaging with a very real critique about consumerism and corporate exploitation, they took it as a direct attack on their ring lights and makeup.
Right, they personalized it instantly.
They trended the hashtag fake reader girl across social media. They flooded YouTube with highly defensive parody videos, claiming he was just a misogynist saying women who wear makeup can't read.
Which wasn't his point at all.
Not at all. They used their massive platforms to bully a single reviewer because he dared to suggest their curated libraries were more about show than substance.
It's really a proxy war between traditional, slow, solitary literary criticism and modern, fast parasocial influencer culture.
A proxy war, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
The backlash entirely missed the point, because BookTube operates on a strict high school clique mentality.
Very Mean Girls.
When your entire identity and income are tied to maintaining a specific, flawless visual aesthetic, any outside critique is perceived as an existential threat.
So they go on the attack.
They circled the wagons to protect their aesthetic brand and weaponize their victim status. They entirely avoided the necessary self-reflection about their role as unpaid corporate marketers.
Unpaid corporate marketers, I mean, that hits the nail on the head. And notice how the mechanism of maintaining visual perfection completely mirrors how they maintain community perfection.
Oh, absolutely.
That obsession with a flawless aesthetic inevitably bleeds into a demand for a flawless moral aesthetic. Which brings us to the cancel culture crusade in literature. And I want to pause here for a second and be incredibly clear. For you listening, our deep dive here is not about relitigating whether boycotting specific authors is politically justified.
Right. We are strictly impartial here.
Exactly. We are taking absolutely no political sides, left-wing or right-wing. We are just impartially reporting what is in the source transcripts.
So conveying the ideas from the source material.
Yeah. The underlying mechanic we're looking at is how a community built on visual perfection weaponizes moral purity to maintain a closed social loop.
And the transcripts show that BookTube has really evolved into a heavy-handed, moral gatekeeping platform that dictates exactly what is socially acceptable.
It's very
extreme. Influencers routinely demand total boycotts of authors based on their personal politics, past actions, or honestly, any themes within their books that clash with modern sensibility.
The transcripts list massive real-world targets here. J.K. Rowling facing boycotts over transgender, Dr. Seuss having books pulled over early stereotypical cartoons. H.P. Lovecraft criticized for documented white supremacy. Orson Scott Card boycotted for homophobia. Even Charles Dickens, going way back, is dragged for leaving his wife for an 18-year-old.
Right. They are applying modern, hyper-specific societal standards backward through history.
Completely stripping away any historical context.
And the source material draws a really chilling comparison here to Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. The character Captain Montag suggests that banning book, or in the modern digital equivalent, algorithmically suppressing them, hiding their covers, and aggressively bullying anyone who discusses them.
Yeah.
Doing all of that in order to maintain a collective peace of mind and enforce a sterile equality is an insidious form of societal control.
Wow, peace of mind as a weapon.
Exactly. If we only consume art that perfectly aligns with our current comfort zone, we completely lose the ability to grapple with flawed, complex humanity.
We regress. If literature never challenges our worldview, it ceases to be art and becomes prop.
Yeah, precisely.
But here is the mass glaring contradiction of this, and this is where it gets really...
Okay.
How can this online community eagerly mobilize to cancel a classic author for moral impurity, but simultaneously thirst over modern fantasy book where the main love interest, highly toxic fairy prince, who literally kidnaps the protagonist, drugs her, and holds her hostage?
It's wild, right? That is the psychological friction point of the entire community.
That makes no sense.
Well, they demand a completely sterile, politically correct real world. They want the authors they financially support to be perfectly aligned with their specific values so they can feel virtuous about their consumerism.
Oh, okay, that tracks.
But a sterile real world is emotionally dead and it's boring. So they use their reading as a vicarious escape into highly toxic, dramatic scenarios.
Ah, I see. So the transcripts call it a Beauty and the Beast style limerence and entitlement.
Right.
They crave the intense emotional high of kidnapped by a dark, brooding, morally gray warlord who magically fixes all their problems.
But they want to experience that from the absolute safety of their IKEA-decorated bedrooms.
Yes, the safety is key.
They publicly execute real-world authors to perform their moral superiority for the clique, maintaining their social standing.
It's all a performance.
But they absolutely refuse to be challenged by complex art that might make them question their own deeply toxic desires.
So they want the thrill of toxicity without any real world.
Exactly.
It's a demand for dark, twisted, sexually aggressive fiction paired with a completely sanitized, heavily policed reality.
Which is a very strange dichotomy.
And that dark craving is completely taking over the actual books being published, which brings us to the total industry-defining dominance of the young adult genre.
Oh boy, the YA takeover.
Yeah, and how adults are fundamentally hijacking it.
We really have to look at the neurology of the YA genre to us.
Okay, break out the science.
So teenagers process the world primarily through the amygdala.
Which is the emotional.
Right, the emotional center of the brain. Because the prefrontal cortex, the logical decision-making center, isn't fully developed until age 25.
Sure.
True YA stories are engineered for that biological reality. They are highly emotional, impulsive, fast-paced narratives focused on coming of age, rebellion, and identity formation.
Right. They're meant for 15 to 18-year-olds.
Exactly. It is literature explicitly designed to help an adolescent process the intense chaos of puberty.
But the deep dive reveals a staggering statistic here. Over 55% of all people buying young adult novels are adults.
More than half.
And 78% of those adults are buying the books for themselves, not for their teens.
Yeah, that's the kicker.
The primary economic engine of teenagers' literature is fully grown adults.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is a classic manifestation of Peter Pan.
Peter Pan syndrome meaning
A psychological refusal to age out of the YA space and move into adult literature that requires more complex, nuanced, or slower cognitive engagement.
they want the fast-paced emotional hit.
Right. But because these readers are chronologically adult, their desires have matured. They want explicit content, dark themes, and complex sexual dynamics.
So they force the market to cater to.
Yes, exactly.
Look at the viral Target shelf photo mentioned in the transcripts. This is a perfect example.
Well, that photo was everywhere.
Right. A display shelf explicitly labeled for teens sitting in a massive door, and it is packed with incredibly heavy, highly graphic, new adult books.
Yeah.
We're talking Colleen Hoover's Verity, The Love Hypothesis, Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses, or ACOTAR. These are not for 15.
No, they're really not. But because adults hold the purchasing power, publishing companies and algorithm-chasing authors are warping the YA genre to satisfy that adult demand.
Following money.
Always, they're injecting highly graphic, sexually explicit content into a category that is theoretically meant for adolescents. They have effectively stolen the genre from teenagers.
Which gives rise to the spicy fairy phenomenon.
Yes, very smart.
The market is utterly drowning in these kidnapping trope, brooding high elf royals, and Wattpad-style hypergraphic romance.
Scenes that basically read as straight erotica.
Exactly. But they're packaged under the aesthetic cover of a magical fairy court to make it seem less problematic or more acceptable to read in public.
It relies on extreme power imbalances, non-consensual dynamics, and the intense romanticization of abusive behavior.
And I have to ask you, listening to this, are we setting teenagers up for massive failure in real life?
It's a valid question.
If a 15-year-old walks into Target, goes to the teen section, and buys a book where the ultimate romantic ideal is a 500-year-old immortal who locks the protagonist in a tower, quote-unquote, for her own good, and stalks her, how does that warp their expectation of healthy communication in high school?
Yeah, it creates a very skewed map of reality.
When the entire BookTube community is universally praising these toxic traits as the ultimate romantic goal, the line between harmless fantasy and realistic expectation entirely.
Well, and while teenagers have always gravitated toward dark or problematic literature, I mean, that's not new.
Right, V.C. Andrews was a thing.
Exactly. But the scale is different now. The algorithmic promotion of these specific tropes on massive platforms normalizes the toxicity in a way that is just unprecedented.
It's inescapable.
The sheer volume of this content, validated by millions of adult influencers, creates a subliminal diet of normalized abuse disguised as epic romance.
And while the community celebrates toxic fairy romance as high art, they are simultaneously actively silencing real, lived experiences.
Yes, they are.
Which is the final piece of the puzzle here. The gatekeeping of personal truth and the debate over the memoir.
This part is incredibly frustrating.
It really is. There is advice treated as absolute gospel on AuthorTube telling aspiring writer, nobody cares about your memoir unless you are Oprah, Neil Armstrong, or a reality star.
Which is an incredibly elitist, shockingly cruel perspective.
It's so cruel.
It reveals a deep rot in how the community views the fundamental purpose of literature.
How so?
Well, this is the ultimate form of gatekeeping. It operates on the hyper-capitalist assumption that a book's only value is its immediate commercial viability to a mass-market audience.
It completely commodifies human existence.
Yes, it does.
It's telling everyday people that if your life hasn't been monetized on television, your experiences are worthless.
And it ignores the entire history of literature. The transcripts counter this toxic advice with some really powerful examples.
Like what?
Well, Jeanette Wall's The Glass Castle. That is a harrowing, deeply personal story of a chaotic, impoverished child.
Right, and it was a huge bestseller.
Yes, but she wasn't a celebrity when she wrote it. The book resonated because of its raw, unvarnished humanity.
Or John Bunyan, the source mentions him.
Right, writing the Pilgrim's Progress in a prison cell.
Yeah.
Every human perspective holds intrinsic value.
Yep.
Writing a memoir is a vital tool for processing trauma, reorienting oneself after a crisis, and navigating mental health.
It's a way to heal. And it feels like the online community wants to commodify imagination with these cookie-cutter YA tropes, while simultaneously silencing real human experiences because they just aren't marketable enough.
Exactly.
Even if it doesn't sell 1 million copies to satisfy an algorithm, what if it reaches one single person?
That's the point.
Writing about living with epilepsy, navigating a mental disorder, or surviving abuse can reach a reader halfway across the world and make them feel less alone in the universe.
That empathetic connection is the actual fundamental magic of book.
Yeah.
If we connect this all to the bigger picture, the contrast is deeply dystopian.
Very much so.
We have an online community that enthusiastically celebrates and mass produces manufactured, aesthetic-driven fantasy about toxic fairies.
Yeah.
But actively, cruelly discourages the messy, unprofitable, authentic reality of everyday human life because it just doesn't fit a marketable mold.
So what does this all mean? Let's take a breath and look at the sheer madness of the landscape we've uncovered today from the transcripts.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is. The relentless pursuit of the algorithm has turned passionate writers into anxious, terrified marketers, churning out cookie-cutter plots.
Right.
Readers have morphed into aesthetic influencers, curating pristine shrines of unread books to win a toxic, unending beauty test.
And the young adult genre has been completely hijacked. It's transformed from a necessary emotional outlet for developing teens into an adult-driven playground of romanticized toxic limerick.
All while a rigid cancel culture dictates exactly what is allowed to survive, policing real-world morality while indulging in extreme fantasy toxic.
Yeah, the hypocrisy is staggering.
And gatekeepers tell everyday people their life stories aren't worth the paper they're printed on.
But I think the core message extracted from the Unwanted Book Club deep dive is a reminder of what reading is actually supposed to do.
Which is what?
It is supposed to challenge you. It's meant to expose you to difficult, complex perspectives and serve as an engine for empathy. It is not supposed to be a sterile echo chamber, a quick dopamine hit of toxic romance, or just a colorful prop to make your background look good on camera.
It's about engaging with the messy reality of humanity, which leaves me with a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
If engagement algorithms, visual aesthetic trends, and a paralyzing fear of being socially canceled completely take over the publishing industry from the grass, will the classics of tomorrow even be recognized?
That's a scary thought.
Or will we eventually just be reading highly optimized, controversy-free content designed by a committee solely to look pretty on an IKEA shelf?
Wow.
Something to think about the next time you walk. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep reading, keep questioning what you know.